They say opposites attract.
Well, how about these opposites? Daddies and sons.
You're listening to Daddy and Son.
A podcast where we explore the dynamics of daddy and son relationships, multi-generational views,
and everything else in between.
Welcome back to another week of Lent.
Welcome.
And penance, charity, no drinking.
Or whatever you want to give up for that period of time, if you're into that.
Sacrifice. Season of giving up matters of the flesh.
Would you give up drinking permanently, do you think?
Oh, absolutely not.
So why do it at Lent?
Then if I gave up drinking permanently, then when Lent would come around next year, I have
drinking.
nothing to give up.
Oh, I'm sure you could think of something, sweetie.
I'll have nothing to give. Then what else would I,
Well, I can think of a couple things, but we won't talk about it on air.
I'll have nothing else to give up. So, I don't see myself giving up.
Well, I'm pleased you're doing so well with that. My last drink was last Saturday night.
Huh.
At a party. And there wasn't very much, didn't drink very much, but it was an occasion to have a glass of wine and a champagne.
Yeah, I've just been keeping it clean, keeping it cute.
Drinking ginger beer, and what are we drinking? It's lovely, ginger beer. And
so this is what I call a wild berry spritz. It's blueberry, blueberry extract with a dropper, with cranberry juice. Topped up with ginger beer and some club soda. So it's a wild berry spritz.
The club soda gives it the little spark.
The little bubbles. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You are so creative with your cocktail making.
Well, this is a mocktail, but yeah.
Yes, true.
Because how many more weeks? 3. 3 more weeks till Good Friday? Or 4?
Well, Lent technically ends. Yeah, it ends on Easter Sunday. No, it's Easter's April 3rd.
No, it ends on Good Friday. Good Friday.
Okay, well, it'll be April 1, I think. So you've got a couple more. I think it's closer to 4, huh?
Yeah, anyway. It's close to 4, but...
Can you stick it out?
I will persevere.
Well,
I will persevere.
Wow.
I will be strong.
They haven't seen you on the LCBO CCTV cameras lately, so.
What's her Kathleen O'Hara, who just passed away in Schitt's Creek? She said, "Courage," and that's what I shall have. Courage.
I'm glad
How was
for
your
you.
week?
It was hugely quick.
Yeah.
I just can't believe how fast these things are going by.
The year. We're in Q. We're almost going to Q2. I'm shocked.
Yeah, and I was glued to the TV about the Iran thing and all the goings on, and watching the market, and finally the market's starting to crap out. But I can't complain.
Well, I kind of feel like this is what happens. These guys, the market closes on Friday afternoon at 4. These guys go off to they fly off to Mar-a-Lago from DC.
You mean War-a-Lago?
Literally, the same president who says, "I'm the president of peace," changes the Department of Defense to Department of War. But yes. I digress.
Well, that's a very important digression.
In a war that is not a war.
It's a Trump war.
He keeps calling it a war. But
they're going to call it
it's not a war.
They're going to not call it the Iran war. They're going to call it the Trump war. They're naming everything else after him. Why not?
It's just like they go home or they go to Mar-a-Lago, have a few drinks, and they're like, what would be fun?
Let's
fuck shit up this weekend.
Well, they sure
and
do
that's what they do. They go home on a Friday. They leave DC on a Friday, go to Mar-a-Lago, have a few drinks, and just decide to cause chaos. The Venezuela situation happened on a Friday night going into a Saturday. Iran, Friday night going into a Saturday. Nigeria, Friday night going into a Saturday.
You could be onto a pattern there, sir.
It's always a Friday night. or early Saturday morning. It always is. Nigeria over Christmas. Venice.
But, Americans must be getting pissed because they elected this guy to stay out of wars and to help the economy, and he's doing the exact opposite in both cases.
Can I tell you? But you know what? I think that the situation with Jasmine Crockett in the primaries that just took place in Texas is proof that America hasn't learned a lesson. It's proof. They haven't learned. I could have told you that was going to happen. Ted Cruz literally left them. Ted Cruz in the middle of an unprecedented winter storm that Texas never has. 22 people froze to death, died. People were burning their furnitures just to keep warm because the grid is not meant for extreme cold weather.
That's a few years ago, or was it this year?
It was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And what did he do? Take up himself with his family and go to Mexico. And people still voted him in as senator. Sorry, not senator, governor of Texas.
No, he's not the governor.
Is not governor, or is it senator?
No, that's the guy that's the governor is in a wheelchair. Can't think of his name right offhand. But anyway.
Okay, so senator then. Senator it is.
But it is Texas, and
but I was just like, are we Are we for real? Do we not learn anything?
Well, Texas is Texas. It's very red, but it could be blue next time. There's still you know what would be better for the Democrats in Texas, since we're a little off topic, but we'll talk about it anyway, is for John Cronin to lose the runoff.
I've been saying to people that I genuinely think that the same situation is going to repeat itself this coming year. It's just going to be rinse and repeat. I don't think people are learning. And this is why...
You mean you think the Republicans are going to win?
Yeah. And this is why when people
That's a bold prediction.
And I'm willing to stand in it.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you one... What's the expression in golf? I'll give you one... I can't think of it.
Did you just say golf?
Golf, yeah. When you're one mulligan, I'll give you a mulligan on that. In other words, I'll allow you to change your mind between now and July 1st.
Interesting.
Okay.
No. I'm willing to stand in that.
Okay,
Let me tell you something. They will not learn. Things will not change. When people last week, Pierre Paul, was it earlier this week? Pierre Paul, I think it was Monday actually. Pierre was on the news saying that we shouldn't be demonizing the U.S. We should be embracing them. We still need them. We shouldn't be running to do business with China and this, that, and the fourth. And I'm just like, are you a finance guy? Are you an economics guy? Because if you were a finance guy, you would know that diversification of the portfolio is essential.
Yeah, we're going to need the Americans, but we are going to need
essential.
Others. We're going to
need others. It's not that you don't need them. It's not that you don't need them. We're still trusting in a democratic process, but the way how things are going, how it's moving like a low-key, not even low-key, high-key autocratic nation. You know, it's like the Olsen twins. I can't tell the difference between the U.S. and Turkey right now. So for me, and that's between leadership and economy. And so, you know, for me, it's just like, yeah, diversifying your, how you, just pop it if you want to pop it. There you go. Just diversifying your,
He was talking about my microphone and nothing else, folks.
Diversifying who we do trade with is essential, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
In fact, it is a nation's prerogative to decide how we want to defend ourselves, whether it's from threats economically or in combat.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with China not to defend ourselves. We're dealing with China to expand our markets, right? And sell them stuff.
Yeah. We need to sell them stuff, and we need stuff from them.
And too bad, exactly. Too bad, Mr. Trump. We're free to do business with whoever we want to do business with, and he may make that difficult, but we still should do it anyway. That's the economy.
But it's ironic that I'm talking about Pierre, because he inspired
you like politics.
Today's topic.
Did he?
Well,
diversity.
Today's diversity. So I saw a meme on Instagram, right? Like a reel where they were doing a skit. The skit is from 22. This show is 22 minutes.
Yeah, which is a CBC production here in Canada. It's a humor show.
I never heard of it until
no.
Well,
isn't it This Day Has 22 Minutes? Is that what they call it?
This show has 22 minutes. Yeah. Which is a parody of 60 Minutes.
Yeah, it's been around for years.
Apparently,
show. Yeah.
Again, I have never seen it.
I think it goes back to the 70s even.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was new. It was new for me. And there was a skit that was done in the most recent episode that shows Pierre walking into the room with Carney having a meeting with the Liberals.
And it's a very good lookalike of Paul Everett too.
It is such a good lookalike.
The Liberal wasn't. I didn't. No,
it didn't. It
didn't look like Carney.
It didn't look like Carney, but he's acting.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, Pierre, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm a Liberal now. Everybody's crossing the floor, so I felt like, wouldn't I be what kind of leader would I be if I didn't know how to follow, And he's basically
that's a very political line.
Prove to me you're now a Liberal, and he snaps his fingers, and someone hands him a photograph, and he says, prove to me that you're a Liberal. What do you see in this photograph? And it's a photograph of a multiracial family.
Yeah.
And Pierre says, that looks like three strangers that I've met for the first time. And they're like, wrong. This is an interracial family. And he's like, I got one of those. And I busted out laughing. And it had me thinking to myself.
Because his wife is from India, right?
His wife is
India, Sri Lanka, yeah.
No, his wife is from Venezuela.
Oh, Venezuela, that's right, of course.
From Venezuela. Oh. I think you're mixing it up with J.D. Vance.
Yes.
And Usha Vance. Mm-hmm. But it had me thinking, it is so ironic that, high-profile conservative leaders have, for the longest time, even though they're very anti-immigration, have always had wives, our partners, or lovers, or mistresses who were of non-white ethnic backgrounds or immigrants.
Hold on. I got to stop you. Conservatives are not opposed to immigration.
Oh, no?
No, they're not.
So
they are very pro-immigration with good numbers, good balance.
Oh, sorry, they're very pro-protect the border.
Well, everybody's protect the border.
Yeah, but when I say protect the border and when a conservative say protect the border, we're talking about different things.
No, but they don't want people that shouldn't be here. Nobody wants people that shouldn't be here, right? I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, but again, we're talking about different things.
But immigration is good as long as we have the right numbers and we have the infrastructure for it. We've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want you to get away with saying conservatives don't like immigration.
Sorry, they just say we're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats for no reason.
Our little tensions aren't just daddy and son. They're left and right. They're Tory and liberal. I don't know where I am on some issues, and you always seem to know where you are.
There's somewhere in between.
That's right. And if we were in the United States, you'd be an independent in that case, right?
Oh, I don't know why I tickle myself with these stupidness.
You are so political, you know that. But you are so political. You should be in politics.
I'm not. But here's the thing. Everything is political. I don't make the rules, okay?
Ooh, that's very profound.
I don't make the rules.
I don't disagree with that. Everything is political.
Yes. From how we worship, how we are educated, the food we eat, our health, how we're made to think, the entertainment that we consume on the television, the news we get, the content we receive on social media. everything is political or politically driven,
Whether you realize it or not.
whether you know it or not.
Because a lot of times you would have no idea why something you think is political, I would think is
You wouldn't think it is political at all. I was having a conversation with someone, and I pulled off with them a Miranda Priestley moment from The Devil Wears Prada, where she was like, Andy had like chuckled, and she was like, "Oh, so you think that you're better than us?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just a blue sweater," and she's like, "Stuff. This isn't just stuff. This is cerulean blue." And she went off on this whole monologue. I had a moment with someone where I was like saying to them that, "Oh, everything isn't political, da 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 da," and I was like, "Oh, really? Fashion isn't political?" I'll have you know that some of the top fashion houses, including Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, are all linked to Epstein. In fact, the CEO of Victoria's Secret, after Victoria's Secret had its scandal because of sexual abuse and diversity issues, gave up more than 2/3 of his fortune to Epstein before he died. And Epstein was the one that had, and this is again is all in the files.
Has everybody got his money?
Well, Epstein got his money from multiple places.
Yeah.
He was the one who convinced him to start the brand Pink, to diversify so that they can, get kids and teenagers and preteens to go when they're going to buy their bra to go into these the Victoria's Secret store, but rather than the flagship Victoria's Secret, they go into this Pink store. Even the name sounds very friendly, it sounds very coming, but it's a bunch of teenagers and preteens in bikini and
Jeffrey just wanted an easier place to shop,
and very sexualized underwear. And what do little girls need? Even the body spritz would have names like Seduction and or Forbidden Fruit and stuff like that in a store that is for teenagers. This was all Jeffrey Epstein's design. It wasn't just done out of like, this of innocence.
No, obviously not.
This was done with intention. And so I was saying to that person, so when you sit there and think that even the clothes you wear and what you're programmed to think that it's not political, you are clearly misinformed.
Well,
everything is political.
It was certainly on his part strategic.
Highly strategic.
And somewhat unethical when you now realize what kind of lifestyle and his side things he did. But anyway.
When you look at the social media today, who runs it? Everything now from Twitter now to TikTok being owned by right-wing moguls, whether that's the Ellisons or Elon Musk. You look at Instagram with Mark Zuckerberg. It's all done as a means of programming a whole generation how to think. But I digress. It's not my fault everything is political, Daddy. So, conservatives, I'm just like, for the people who are known to be, let's face it, they get the reputation of being very white nationalist, very Christian nationalist, very anti-immigration. They certainly would prefer.
Certainly in the U.S., that's
certainly
true.
in the U.S. and in Canada, in some sectors of the conservative movement.
Yeah, we're a little more progressive in this country. We're more liberal country. We're a more open country.
Right now, but it makes you you start asking the question: if we did close our borders to immigrants, and if the Conservative Party is so white nationalist, why do all of these people have non-American, non-white spouses? And I'm talking about, we mentioned a few earlier, like J.D. Vance, Mark Zuckerberg, who is, a big conservative donor, is an Asian wife. Mitch McConnell with his Asian wife as well. Elaine Chao. Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice with Virginia. He's Virginia, or is Macrib as I like to call her, who is a white woman. Candace Owens and George Farmer from the Farmer family in the UK. Prominent Tory, wealthy. His father is a lord. In the House of Lords in the UK, Larry Elder and Alexandra Detting. So I can go far back.
These are names I'm not
even
familiar
Joe
with.
Rogan and his wife, as an example, and his Latina wife, as an example. I mean, we mentioned earlier with Pierre Poilievre himself and his wife, who is from Venezuela. Hell, the U.S. president and Melania,
Yeah.
who wasn't even born in the U.S. Imagine that, a first lady who is not even from America.
That's true. I wonder how many of those there have been. Not many.
I don't think we've ever had any. Not since the day of the Pilgrims. Not since people looked like Thanksgiving.
Since the Pilgrims, yes.
I have no idea, but I cannot think back to a time that we've ever had a first lady who was not born in the U.S. Can you? You're almost 80.
You're pushing that one. We won't say ages here, folks.
You know, so tell us. And so it kind of inspired today's discussion because I was thinking about, it is so interesting that these are the same folks that are very anti-immigrant. They're tied to white nationalism, both in Canada and the U.S. The conservative movement have taken money from far right or white nationalist groups like Dagathon, Proud Boys in the U.S. They've taken money both from Proud Boys and from the KKK, and has been endorsed by them as well. And so, you know, separate and apart from the juxtaposition that if you vote this way, you have voted with the same group of people who represent the KKK. Right? And that is something that is between you, your God, and your conscience. But it had me thinking, is this a contradiction? You know, conservatives who criticize immigration and multiculturalisms, and they themselves have multiracial families. I think it's a very interesting way it's a very interesting position that no one has really called them out, because this is not a mainstream conversation. You don't see it on the news. You don't see it on Fox. You don't really see it in podcasts.
You're right. It hasn't been talked about very much, and I guess it's just people do keep the private lives separate from the political lives.
But again, when we talk about private lives, it's driven identity politics. You hear the term all the time, identity politics. It's driven how people vote, whether that's if you're LGBTQ, if you're trans.
Say that again. I'm not sure I understand you. Identity politics drives how people vote?
Identity politics have driven how people vote, yeah. I identify as Christian, so I vote this way.
I'm not sure I know what that means. I think what drives people's votes...
identity politics?
What drives people's votes are what's important to them at the time they have to vote.
You think so?
Yeah. Because the whole challenge of a campaign is to figure out what the issue is on the minds of the voter so that you can come out in a way that they like the message.
So you don't think that people who vote conservative because they want to keep women's bathroom, and men's bathroom is not identity politics?
That is identity politics, but I don't think most people vote. You don't think
people who vote because...
But most people don't vote for that particular reason. They might subscribe to that.
Or people who say, I vote this way because I am pro-life. You don't think that's identity politics?
There's some people that would... It depends on the issue that's important to the person. The trick of a political party is to get the issues that are most important in the minds of most voters.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always going to be pockets of people are this way, that way, and you're not going to meet their needs.
Can I say something and
Of
counter
course.
you? I think that is absolute bull. I think that majority of the populace are identity politics voters. I think they're single issue voters, and they always hide behind the guise of economics.
Well, I think that the data would prove you wrong on that.
No, because people say what they want to say, but the truth of the matter is, I don't believe people will say I voted because of this. They'll always say it because nobody wants to look inwardly and feel like a bigot.
True, but most of the determining of how people are going to vote is usually determined before an election. What's important to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
The surveys and all the
oh, absolutely.
All that stuff.
But it's like how 2/3 of America said we voted for Trump because of the economy, and the economy is doing significantly worse than it was before.
He's not. I watched Sarah Longwell on MSN Now this afternoon. She does a lot of surveying of consumers and these meetings when you get people together, and she said the people that were who were Biden voters who voted for Trump in 24 wanted him to do one thing: fix the economy, and he hasn't done that.
I think there's a fragmentation between what people say and what people do, but that's a whole other conversation. So I'm going to segue to interracial dating within the gay community. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we've all been on the Grinder or the Adam for Adam if you're internationally desperate. And they'll say, no blacks, no femmes, no rice, no spice, no curry, etc. And I'm pretty sure you know what all those means.
Yes, I've seen those things.
Yeah, no curry means no Indian, no spice means no Latinos, no rice means no Asians, and no blacks, obviously, and no femmes.
But you don't see a lot of that. Every now and then you'll see it.
Well, I haven't really been on Grindr for a while, since 2017, because of my work.
Oh, okay.
And Grindr is owned by China, so ever since the Yahweh situation, where we found out that they were spying on Canadian citizens, government employees or people with government security clearance in Canada and military workers are not allowed to have TikTok, Grindr, or Yahweh phones. But they took Yahweh phones off the shelves in Canada completely.
It's interesting you say this, because I have been hit up on more than one occasion, I would say half a dozen times, by young Asian men who think they're attractive, which for me, I'm not particularly attracted to Asian men, but sometimes I am. They're nice people. We had a conversation, and inevitably gets to, what do you do for a living? And then they tell you that they do investments and they're into cryptocurrency. And you know where the conversation is going. Mm. And they're out to pilfer money from you. Well, and I wonder how much of that comes from Chinese spying. I don't know.
I mean,
this sounds a pretty simple way to say it, but
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Most of what we think is complex because, dramatic effect on, Hollywood or movies or television is actually pretty much straightforward and quite simple. Uh-huh. Whether that's a honeypot or pig butchering or even just old school fishing. This is typically what they do. I can't tell you how many times, even as recently as last year with CrowdStrike, we did a training on insider threats, where we've literally brought up examples of people who had issues with either insider trading or swapping state secrets because their partner, who is unbeknownst to them, has leaked trade secrets or has leaked national security information to either friends, family, or even extramarital lovers that happen to be spies. So these things do happen.
Yeah.
They do happen. We did a training on that just last, I think it was October.
I wish you could have met my friend.
So these things do happen, but it makes me, I see this all the time when I used to be on the apps, and it makes me wonder if that's how people feel. Why is it that anytime I'm in the village or I'm in the gay community, I'm always seeing these white guys with their Asian boyfriends, or these white guys with their.
But that's good, isn't it?
Yes and no, because it then leaves a big question mark. Is it true love or is it fetishization? Sorry, that word always trips me up. Fetishization.
Well,
you know the stereotypes,
yeah,
like
I
the
know what you're saying.
BBC, exoticizing Asian men. They're so smooth, they're hairless, the lady boys, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There's usually an exotification or fetishization. Oh God, say that 5 times fast.
Fetishization.
Anyways, it leaves a question mark.
Yeah, it could be that. But you know what? Opposites attract. There's, maybe the...
But how about these opposites?
Yeah. Hey, you remembered.
Not to call out, like, these white guys with their Indian boyfriends. Wink. I'm just joking. But you get what I'm saying. Is it a fetishization or is it actual love?
Well, it could be, but why is it important to know the difference right now?
Well, it's important to know the difference right now for the younger generation who is struggling, because we need to break that generational curse of identifying the difference between preferences and prejudice.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. How to prejudice. So, keep talking. What do you mean by that? Like, it's okay to have a preference, isn't it? Like, I'll be honest with you. I always have had a preference for men of color. I can't tell you where it came from. It's just in my genes.
Somewhat, I think people are allowed to have preferences, but if your preference is
driven by a fetish,
or even by racism itself, it is something that we need to check ourselves inwardly as to why that is. I've actually done a lot of work on this on myself recently. Well, not recently, it was sometime last year. For about 6 years after I left my ex-fiance, back in 2019, I only dated blonde blue men. I only dated guys who were blonde and blue.
What was your ex-fiance?
Dark hair.
Okay.
Middle Eastern. I only dated folks who were blonde blue.
Okay.
And it is crazy to me.
Was that a fetish?
Well, I don't even know if it was a fetish. I used to say it was a preference.
Yeah.
But I realized that it wasn't. It really wasn't. Here's the thing.
It wasn't a preference?
Here's the thing. He cheated on me multiple times with guys who were blonde blue. And as an artist, he would always draw, which is how we met, because I was one of his nude models at one point at the university he was teaching at. And I was, and he, even his password was blonde blue.
Oh.
I think he had this.
This was a subconscious.
As an artist, he probably preferred Aryan men for, artistic muse. And
a psychotherapist would have lots of fun with this, by the way.
Oh, it was in therapy that this
came out?
This came out.
Oh, okay.
And I realized that over the past half decade, the reason I kept dating guys who were blonde blue was not because I had a preference, but because I was hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I was hurting, and I wanted to feel as though if I can bag a blonde blue, the type of guy, and a very strapping looking, handsome blonde blue, then it means that I'm a baddie. It means that I'm a catch, and I was good enough, and it was his loss.
Okay, it was kind of your way of getting back.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so,
but you figured that out. That was good.
Prejudice versus preference.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be as deep as for me as my situation, obviously.
But you are naturally attracted to Caucasian men. Is that fair to say?
And that was the question of the day. And the question of the day is, I don't necessarily have a flavor.
Okay.
Because I've also dated Asian men.
Yeah.
I've dated indigenous men. I've dated black men.
Mm-hmm.
And I've dated
what other colors are there?
And I've dated Latinos.
You have a variety of you're
right?
It
just so happens that the majority of guys I've dated and had sexual rendezvous with are Caucasian.
Mm. Well, partly because we live in a city that is still predominantly
it's predominantly white. That is true.
Yeah.
But I also do think that there is. I do think, Norm, that there was some verisimilitude to my deeper insecurities, my deeper prejudice, and my psyche as to is this something that I want to be in this interracial relationship, or was there a prejudice behind it? And a prejudice could be like a fetish, or be it could be someone saying it's a preference, but it's actually racism. As an example, you could be a white person who says, I only date other white people because this is my preference. But is it your preference, or is it racism?
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
so it's on the flip side.
I think it comes down to what's in every person's heart.
And leave it to you.
Well, no, but let me take a moment and share. I just naturally always had an attraction to black men. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. This was something that's in my genes. I mean, it's part of my. I remember looking at a book when I was in high school, going over to a department store and looking at in the book section of this department store and seeing this paperback picture of a black and a white guy in a sauna. It was sort of steamy and foggy. You couldn't see the images very well. But I remember thinking, oh man, is that ever hot? Like what was inside me that responded to that way? Well, was that a prejudice? No, I think it was just a natural desire, an attraction to that scene. And for me, that's how I learned to express it. Now, could I say racist things knowingly or unknowingly? Yeah, I guess as a human being, I could. Mm-hmm. But that's not the same as having an attraction to somebody who's non-Caucasian. And my type is definitely non-Caucasian.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, because a lot of the queer community thinks that they're progressive. But if you even spend 5 minutes on a dating app, you know, if you're a queer person and you're listening to this podcast, you know where I'm going with this conversation. If you spend 5 minutes on a grinder or on a Sniffies, you know very much race plays a big part in how people move on these apps, the moves they make. And especially if you're a black bottom, you are on the bottom of the totem pole. It's Asian tops and then black bottoms.
But Asian tops just above black bottoms?
Just above black bottoms.
Oh.
And we sit at the...
In terms of desirability.
In terms of desirability. They sit on the bottom of the totem pole.
Well, that's good to know. Now, there's not a lot of competition then for what I like.
So, cultural differences aside, or prejudices aside, I think people need to look deeper into cultural differences. Because some people, I've actually dated one guy who said to me, a blonde blue guy, who said to me that he would never introduce me to his parents. Because
I think I remember you telling me about that.
yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
His name starts with a G. He would never introduce him to his parents because he doesn't want them to feel uncomfortable or to make me feel uncomfortable. And he doesn't think that, culturally or we would align with each other. So I'm just like, then why are we dating?
Well, I was going to say, did you go out very much with him after that?
Oh, no. We separated like weeks after.
Weeks? Oh, it would have been hours after for me if somebody said that.
Here are some things that...
By the way, as you get older, you put up with a lot less bullshit, or you don't put up with bullshit very long.
Yeah, I was in my 20s.
You were younger. Yeah,
I was in my 20s. So, things...
You were trying to make it work and then realized this just doesn't work.
After a while, being in our 20s is learning that you can't always... You can't keep trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Do you know what? That's a very good description of the 20s. There's a book by Gail Sheehy called Passages, Predictable Crisis in Adult Life. And she talks about each decade, and she calls the 20s the turbulent 20s. And I read that book right at the end of the 20s, and I remember thinking, man, is she right.
How old was she when she wrote that book?
Well, she's probably long gone, but I would think she was a psychologist. This is a book that's on the, I read this, 45 years ago?
Oh, so it's a very old book then.
Yeah, but it's human nature basically divided into decades. Be interesting to have a look at it again.
I will see if I can find it in a bookstore, even online, if I can get the paper.
It's called Passages. Passages. Yeah. Predictable Crisis in Adult. Gail Sheehy.
Sheehy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll take a look out for it. But.
So you were experiencing the turbulent 20s, and you make a lot of dumbass decisions in the 20s. I made some stupid decisions in the 20s.
I think having someone say to me, oh, I couldn't introduce to my family because it would just make things very difficult, make people uncomfortable. That in itself is racially charged. It's not racist, but it's definitely racially charged. And it makes you wonder if you have a preference, right? I'm air quoting preference. If you have a preference and your preference is to somebody who is not of the same ethnic background as you, question, don't you believe that you have a moral responsibility? Because caucasity
is
the default in society. Let's just call it what it is. It's the default. Don't you think you have a moral responsibility to then learn, understand, respect that person's cultural background as well?
I think that's a fair expectation. Yeah.
When people say, oh, you're cultured, they're usually talking about someone who it involves themselves with Eurocentric white activities, like going to the opera or going to the ballet or whatever the case may be. But those watch the Super Bowl halftime show this year and complain that not a lick of word was in English. And that was a 7-minute show, but they'll go to an opera and sit down for 3 hours
and listen to
somebody singing Italian that they don't know a lick of word from. So it's when you really boil down, when you boil the sugar down, right? When you get to the meat and the potatoes of the matter, what is it?
If when you boil the sugar daddy down? There's a few of those in this situation too.
When you get to the hard center of it all, what is it if not racism? What is it?
Well, let me go back to
politics.
Let me go back to the situation of your friend. Because I would say two things about that. One, in a way, one way of looking at it is maybe in a way he was protecting you too, Because he himself didn't share the views his parents did, but he didn't want to expose you to harm or. But obviously, at that point, you would have to say, well, this isn't going to go very far for sure.
Well, listen, rejection is protection. You hear me? Rejection is protection. Every time I look around, I've always said, to this day, I believe, because the way I was wild in my 20s, I believe to this day the only reason I was not trafficked, or the only reason I have not had an STI, STD, or the only reason I'm not dead in a ditch somewhere is rejection. Rejection has been my protection.
Because the relationship didn't go far enough for it to happen.
Because either relationship didn't go far enough,
yeah.
or guys would see me on apps and say, I'm not into you, or da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then they always...
That's an interesting... Rejection is protection.
The handsome wet twink, and they're the ones who end up in deep down in drugs, face down in a ditch, contracting HIV in their early 20s, whatever the case. Or Epstein, as an example, famously said in the files, he doesn't want black women on the island. Rejection is protection.
Mm-hmm. For them, it was, yeah.
Rejection is protection. So, and that's not me discouraging interracial couples, especially between, conservative men and other, or conservative men and women, or conservative men with other men, right? The conversation is more about how do you navigate racism as a couple? How do you manage family relationships? Because I've been in a relationship with one of my blonde blue guys who said to me, everything is about race for you. Everything you talk about race. And I'm like, well, it's not my fault that everything is about race. Well, and it's like, everything is not about race. And I'm like, everything is about race.
Well, it is to you. And not everybody looks at the world the same way you do. As long as you accept that, not everybody looks at the way I do.
And you know what? That is fair.
Yeah.
But the world that we live in the Western world that we live in, it's not designed with people like me in mind. People with my skin color. Hell, it was just until 2017 that the World Health Organization acknowledged that black people and Caucasian people feel the same levels of pain.
Really? The WHO just realized that?
2017. Hell, Serena Williams, who is not a millionaire, a billionaire with a B, they nearly let her die when she was pregnant. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Because they thought that she was exaggerating about the pain that she was feeling. I don't necessarily think that this is the world that we live in. Yes, as a white person, you may not see it, but if you're going to be dating someone who is of a different ethnic group,
you got to realize they have a series of struggles that you as a white person don't have. And listen, I've sat in conversations listening to Jamaican friends describe like situations like walking in the subway and having somebody, they're sitting on a seat and somebody coming by and deliberately not sitting beside them when there's an empty seat there. And I shook. I said, really? Does that happen? Yeah. And they kind of shrug and say, yeah, well, that happens all the time. And I think, what the hell? Like, I just don't think that way. So it's hard for me to imagine that, but there are real jerks. Listen, I want to put a plug in for a group that I've known for a long time in the U.S. was first called Black and White Men Together, and they have a second name, Men of All Colors Together.
I think you've mentioned this to me in the past. Yeah.
And we actually we tried to start a chapter here in Toronto in the late 80s. I remember having a great party. Oh, we went... Listen, I had a couple of great parties at my place. Because friends came up from the States and said, this is great. You guys got a lot of... This was like 35 years ago. So there wasn't the number of multiracial couples then that there is today, for example. But this group struggles with all the same kind of issues you're talking about. They have an annual conference. They have meetings throughout the year. They have chapters all through the U.S., none in Canada. We never did get one going here. You know what? The only thing you do is talk about this stuff.
And that was one of the things that opened up my eyes at that time to that relationship. And that was someone who I'm in a relationship with at the time I felt, how dare you say to me that everything isn't about race. But as I took a step back and I thought about it, I said to myself, it shouldn't be a how dare you. It should be a why do you not have empathy?
Yeah, on a perspective to see things a little outside of your
to see things outside of your scope.
Yes.
So that,
and that's why two people in a multiracial relationship have to have very good communication.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because, like I said, everyday life or health, the way we are educated, the way we receive nutrition, what jobs we can get, where we can live, all these things are defined by the color of our skin. Maybe not yours, but ours. Mm-hmm. And so,
and it may not be said in as many words, but people are thinking that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what? I got to tell you another thing. The first guy I ever dated, black guy I dated, he lived in Michigan. I met him here in Toronto, and he was a college kid. And we had 2 or 3 years, lots of fun. He's gone now, but I remember his roommate at University of Michigan complaining when he got mad at him, he'd call him Oreo. Because he was black on the outside, but inside he was,
I get that a lot.
Do you really?
I get that a lot because I've been told many times that I don't speak like a black person. Like if someone hears me on the phone and they don't know what I look like, especially because I have a Scottish last name, they will think that I'm white. Alex Watson. They'll think that I'm a white person. But, it even goes back to, and I'm glad that you should mention that, because even cultural learning, like say food as an example, diet. There are some people, call it as is, some Caucasian people can't really handle spice and they only season with a little bit of salt and pepper.
Well, I add a few more spices.
Norm,
I add more spices, but let me tell you something.
You throw the salt in the pot all the way from Alaska.
I have a friend who listened to the podcast and he said, your friend, I can tell he's Caribbean. I could hear it in his voice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So he picked you up. No, I think he was a black guy who picked you up. So,
well, you know what? Yeah. Caribbean people, we always know ourselves. Okay, we know ourselves.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
We know ourselves.
I just can't remember who told me that. I wish I could, but...
Or even if it's circling back to even, the conservative movement and the irony that it's not the Democrats, it's not the liberals, the high-profile liberal politicians that you usually see date outside their race. It's usually the conservatives.
I have never ever thought of that. I'm going to start making a note of it.
I guarantee you're going to be like,
I'm an example of that, aren't I?
You're gonna start noticing it. You're going to start noticing it. I guarantee you're going to start noticing it now.
Interesting pattern. I have never thought of that.
But it goes circle back to the political differences, because even though these people may have a particular attraction and they vote a particular way that may not be to the benefit of the people that they're in a relationship with, these people or these subgroup or these subsection of people, they themselves, and I've always said this, if you've been listening to this podcast, you say this like all the time, I believe that most ethnic groups, whether you're Latino or you're Asian or you're black, most ethnic groups are likely to vote conservative. They're likely to lean conservative. And the only reason why, especially in the US, most black people, especially black women, vote Democratic and not Republican, is because of the racism that runs deep into the party culture. Had that not been there,
the Latinos are leaving Trump in droves now. Yeah, in Texas especially.
Most of these groups, subgroups, whether you're talking about Indians or Latinos, they are conservative in nature and conservative in values.
But you know what? In Canada, back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, immigrants voted Liberals. That was the Liberal Party gained. Now that's switched over.
That's switched over now.
Yeah,
because Brampton is practically.
Well, it's
turning blue.
Is it? Yeah, that's true.
Oshawa, which is now once upon a time was a white area, which is now 50-50, is turning. It's practically blue. It used to be NDP, and it's now blue. You know, you're seeing a blue wave in Canada, and just for reference, blue in Canada is conservative. It's the flip side of the U.S., in where blue in the U.S. means Democrat. But blue in Canada means conservative. And
good point.
You see this wave of blue all across Ontario, and most of them are immigrants.
Except in Toronto, where it's still pretty
I have
liberal.
Indian immigrants who this last election last year voted conservative. And I remember asking my girlfriend, I said, I don't get it. I don't get it. I was like, you do know that the conservatives don't like Indians being in the country, right? And she said to me, well, I do. I also think that we have too many Indians in Canada. Flash forward, 3 months later, we had the cap where they stopped allowing Indians into the country. And her mom, who used to visit her every year since she's been living in Canada, no longer is able to get a visa to come into the country.
Really?
Because they had put a pause on visas.
I didn't know that. Speaking of which, I got to get a new passport. But you know what?
So
it's getting late.
I think there's a paradox there, and there is a deeper discussion that has to be integrated and intertwined into multiculturalism, as multiculturalism within conservatism and interracial dating. But I'm gonna close out today because I want to leave it on a healthy and a non-problematic standpoint.
Yeah, we haven't fought today. That's really good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Which is that, I'm here for love without borders. So I'm not going to be the one to bash people on who they want to date or who they want to love or who they want to marry.
Yeah, that's good. We can't judge
I'm just
people.
here to point out the irony of it.
Fair enough.
That's it.
So pointed.
And I want anyone that's within a multiracial relationship to just look within themselves, whether you're black, white, Asian, purple, blue, whatever you are,
love the one you're with.
And you're dating across color or party lines. Have the conversation with yourself. Is this preference or is it prejudice?
And is there love?
Yeah.
If there's love covers all of those things.
Yeah. Like I said, love without borders. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Love covers a multitude of sins.
I think that's what today's episode name is going to be. Preference or prejudice. Yeah.
Well, I like the other one, Love Without Borders.
Love Without Borders?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I like that one.
That's cute. All right. With that being said, is there anything before we go that you'd like to say
I've said it all.
To the kids?
You've said it all.
Is there any announcements? Anything you want people to know? Any features of you in the news again you want people to read or to look up on the YouTube? No?
I'll pencil it in for next week.
You'll pencil it in for next week?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening to today's episode. And if you've made it all the way to the end, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's called @Daddy and Son Podcast. That is the @ Daddy and Son Podcast over on YouTube. If you want to send Daddy or myself any questions, send them over to daddyandsonpodcast@gmail.com. That's DADDYANDSON podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, sons, be good to your daddies.
And daddies, be kind to your sons.